fourth episode of NFL Weekly. This is a weekly series that I do. Well, it's 3 weeks in a row now. I'm kind of, well, hopefully if I upload this, but it's 3 weeks in a row that I'm doing this. We take a look at my best bets. We take a look at my NFL power rankings, and we go to my top 3 storylines of the week, what I took away from last week, and what I think is going to be important going into this week. And so we usually have a lot of fun, but without further ado, let's just begin this episode, and let's begin. Okay, this time we're going to start with my top 3 storylines because I really want to start talking about my top 3 storylines because I'm pretty excited about this week. And now a lot of debate is like how to rebuild the team. Now with the Miami Dolphins coming up with Josh Rosen, I have 2 storylines with them. And we're going to start off with how do they rebuild? Do they draft Chase Young number 1 overall if they get the number 1 pick? Because I don't see them winning any game really. The Bengals are challenging them for that since they're starting a rookie quarterback, but I really don't see the Dolphins winning any game as far as like throughout the year. Maybe they beat the Jets or something like that, but realistically they're not going to be winning any games. So if they have the number 1 overall pick, do they draft Chase Young and then do they wait? You had teams like the 49ers, teams like, that just delayed their getting their quarterback, and then they just accumulate all these picks. The Browns delayed all these quarterbacks for years and years, picking low quarterbacks instead of just making a splash and picking the number 1 overall quarterback, which is going to be a theme for the rest of the video. But I do think that the Dolphins should look at drafting Chase Young number 1 overall because they have 3 first-round draft picks this year, and that's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out. I'm not going to come out with a mock draft because I don't know any of the players. I don't know where the teams are going to end up, and that's 6 months into the future. I'd be a dope. I did want a mock draft before the season even started, just for like shits and giggles. But I'm not going to start. The draft is coming nearer and nearer. These players doing this because I don't really watch college that much. I know how my Florida guys are doing, and that's pretty much it. I know maybe Chase Young, how he's in the Heisman race. But yeah, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise to suck and have a sucky quarterback. I mean, for years and years, or even to have a quarterback injured. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo went down last year. They tanked, got Nick Bosa, got Deebo Samuel, and with their first 2 picks, and now they're good. They only had 6 draft picks last year, but they were really high draft picks. They're really good value. And, the Saints this year, it's not really about draft. It's about Drew Brees being healthy. He had a fluke injury with his thumb. That's probably the best thing that could have happened to him. Now, towards the end of the season, he's going to be healthy, and the Saints have a chance to make a run for it because everyone's going to be healthy. Drew Brees now has a week off before week 10 or whatever. He had a week to prepare to get back in the mojo. Now he has a week off. Now they're going to be have this division locked up for the future. I mean, there's so many little things that you think that are against you that end up working out for you in the long run. Now the Bears, that didn't end up working out for them because you know what? Now they actually need a quarterback, and do you know who doesn't have a first-round pick this year? Well, the Bears, and now they're going to have to be looking for trades for a different quarterback, a quarterback that a team didn't even want. How often does it work where you get a quarterback from a different team and that ends up being really good? I mean, I guess Drew Brees, and that was an injury when he was playing with the San Diego Chargers at the time. And maybe you could say Jimmy Garoppolo, but he was back up to Tom Brady. You don't have a lot of those situations now. And Bill Belichick actually wanted to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. So these quarterbacks are not going on trees. What are you going to try to get? A Josh Rosen if you're the Bears? What are you going to try to do? And that's sometimes it's unfortunate. You think that, we made the right pick, but then it turns out in the long term. The thing is, with these, with the NFL, things turn around really quickly. Remember when we were like, 3 years ago when Alex Smith was with the Chiefs, it was the roster that was carrying the team, and Alex Smith was just along for the joyride. Now, the thing is, you know what? Patrick Mahomes is leading this team. This team can't play. So the narratives change really quickly in this league. I remember when Deshaun Watson was playing, it's like, this team sucks. Deshaun Watson. In the beginning, it was like, this team is really talented. Deshaun Watson is a key piece. Now, J.J. Watt's gone. Jadeveon Clowney is gone. Tyrann Mathieu is gone in that defense. Now it's just like, Deshaun Watson has to lift this entire team. He has to do his magic. So narratives change really quickly in this league. So that's something to take mind of. People always think about the long term. Like, you know what? Bradley Chubb and Von Miller are going to be rushing passers for years and years. Well, all of a sudden, Von Miller's getting a little bit old, just 3 years like that. Now, Bradley Chubb is injured. So narratives change really quickly in this league, and you gotta be prepared to go off things really quickly. And you think sometimes things that look bad for you, like your quarterback getting injured, end up working out in the long term because you accumulate all these first round picks for years and years and years. The Giants are trying to do this with just getting a bunch of defensive linemen. Leonard Williams, a number 6 pick. Now you have Dexter Lawrence, a number 17 overall pick. You have Dalvin Tomlinson. I forget when he was selected, but now you have a lot of talent, and the talent starts to accumulate, and eventually things work well. My question with the 49ers is, a lot of the players seemed like busts. You had Reek Armstead, you had Solomon Thomas, you had, D Ford was good, but he just got put in. Fred Warner. A lot of these guys were considered busts before the season started, like, oh, what are they doing? But now it's just so many players that you just have a bunch of talent, and it works out. You want as many shots at the apple as possible. You want as many shots in the dark, obviously not in the dark, but with the best mindset possible to land these players. And the 49ers were able to do that. For years and years, the Browns were able to do that with a bunch of first-round picks. Obviously, some of them are injured now. Some of them didn't hit. You could say Myles Garrett isn't much. He's actually playing really well this year, but some other defensive players were little bits of busts. But eventually, you accumulate. You're so bad because you don't have a quarterback, or your quarterback gets injured. There may be blessings in the skies. And now the Bears, it just turned out that they don't have a number 1 overall pick. You have certain teams that are going to be shot in the dark, kind of like the Chargers when they accumulated picks for years and years and years. You have to suck for a couple years to get those draft picks. If you're so good, only the Patriots can withstand that. There are very few teams that can win year after year after year. Sometimes you have to get unlucky, lose a couple of drafts, get bad, and then just accumulate a bunch of talent. And the Bears weren't able to do that. They missed on a lot of players recently, and they ended up missing on their quarterback, and that was the main piece for them. But I feel like I'm babbling a little bit. I think you guys get the point of what I'm saying. And let's just move on to my next storyline, because it has to do with Josh Rosen. It's just a sad story, Josh Rosen. So he was drafted by the Cardinals. He was traded up for. He was picked number 10 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft. And he said, like Aaron Rodgers did when he got drafted, these 9 teams are going to regret, not drafting me. But I think right now, those 9 teams are pretty happy that they didn't draft Josh Rosen. And it's not because he sucks. Actually, it is. Well, he's gotten a raw deal. I mean, I watched a Payne Manning film analysis, and Josh Rosen's good. Obviously, he makes some mental mistakes sometimes, tries to force things. He's good in the pocket. He has a little bit of mobility. He's not the quickest guy. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but he's good enough. And now, last year, he got traded to the Dolphins. A lot of people are like, oh, he's going to get traded to the Chargers or the Giants or the Patriots to be a backup role and learn under a good coach. Under Phillip Rivers, who's smart, under Eli Manning, under Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady. But instead, he went to Miami under Brian Flores, and that's not really a smart organization. They're not really known for developing quarterbacks like Ryan Tannehill. Like, they didn't really develop him that well. They haven't found a quarterback since Dan Marino, and he's really got the raw end of the deal. And then plus, they traded his left tackle away. They traded his wide receivers away. They traded everyone away. And even Kenny Stills is gone now. And he started off not winning the job, which is concerning against Ryan Fitzpatrick. But Ryan Fitzpatrick is a veteran. And I think I said in the beginning, I'm like, Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to win this job. I said that because he looks better, because he knows. I think Brian Flores and him would connect. Like, he knows he's veteran. He knows what to do. He can pick up the playbook. But Josh Rosen's pretty smart too. He did pick up the Arizona Cardinals playbook pretty quickly, according to Cliff Kingsbury. He's a man of class. He's not like Baker Mayfield anymore. He started off a little bit cocky, but now he's ending up, I think, a little bit more like an Eli Manning. He says the right things. He doesn't make a bunch of news anywhere. When was the last time you heard anything about Josh Rosen saying, oh, this team sucks, not surrounding me with any pieces? Not really. And with that being said, now he's on the Miami Dolphins. He got traded for a couple, like maybe a second and a fifth or whatever it was. But where is he going to go next? Now, obviously, I mentioned the Bears in my last storyline. I think they're going to have to... that's going to be a key, maybe piece for the Bears. And Mitch Trubisky isn't much worse than Josh Rosen, which is concerning to me as far as, like, whether the Bears are going to get him or not. But I think the Bears are going to look for, like Matt Nagy, he's going to look for a guy who can expand the playbook, like a Cam Newton, like a Marcus Mariota, a guy who doesn't really turn the ball over. I mean, Josh Rosen, although you could say he's still kind of a rookie, he had 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions this year, and that's unacceptable. And he started 4 games. He only threw 1 touchdown pass. I mean, like, come on. Like, eventually you have to show improvements. I know he was dealing with really bad things, but I mean, Fitzpatrick at least is a gunslinger. He can do some things. He can potentially win some games. I mean, they were in that game against the Redskins when Ryan Fitzpatrick came back in. They did score a couple touchdowns before they decided to tank against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, yeah, and other teams I could see training for Josh Rosen, very limited. So, let's start off. Let's continue with, like, the teams that are going to draft the quarterback in the first round next year. I think the Dolphins and the Bengals are definite. They're going to get a combination of Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, or Joe Burrow. That's my opinion about it. And then it depends where the rest of them land up. I think the Buccaneers are a candidate to pick a quarterback in the first round next year. I think the Chargers are too. They got Easton Stick, but is he going to be long-term future? I think Phillip Rivers is getting older. He's playing all right, but he can't lift this team anymore. So I don't think Josh Rosen would be much of an improvement either over him. The Redskins, they have Dwayne Haskins. They're going to have a new coach that I think is going to foster Dwayne Haskins. They also have Alex Smith and Case Keenum. I think they stick with that. I don't think they blow it all up and draft a quarterback again. I don't think they trade for a quarterback either. I think they have too many quarterbacks in that locker room that they're just going to try to develop. They have a lot of talent missing in other places, like a left tackle. They may want Andrew Thomas, so they're not going to want to move off their quarterbacks, I don't think. So, yeah, there aren't too many teams looking for it. The 5 teams that I can come up with, again, were the Bears, the Buccaneers, the Vikings, the Patriots, and the Steelers. But the Patriots, they could have done it this offseason. They knew that Tom Brady was getting old, and they knew that he was going to be on the cheap, and they still didn't get him, which is concerning for me. The Steelers knew that they had Ben Roethlisberger, and they just signed him to a 3-year deal, so they were convinced, and plus they had Mason Rudolph. They didn't know they'd be in this situation like a lot of other teams. You know, the Panthers, obviously, you still have Kyle Allen. I don't think that they're going to look for a Josh Rosen. The Vikings, it's the last year of Kirk Cousins, so maybe they go, okay, let's get a Josh Rosen. We're going to have a better offensive line. We have a good defense right now. And maybe Josh Rosen can be that guy as like a little bit of a backup. I think right now for Josh Rosen, the rest of his career is going to be a backup. The best way I can compare it to is Teddy Bridgewater. You know, a first-round pick who got a shot at it in the beginning and kind of just got a raw deal. You know, Teddy Bridgewater did get injured. Josh Rosen never got injured. But he's just going to be a perennial backup for the entirety of his career. Josh Rosen isn't quite a Jake Locker type guy. I think that Josh Rosen's it's going to be a failed story. And unless he has a perfect condition, he's not going to really shine at all. And he's not really going to get a fair shake. There's not going to be a coach that's going to be like, oh yeah, I can fix Josh Rosen. We can do this. I don't think there's going to be that type of guy. And he's going to have to scratch and claw his entire career to do something. He may end up like a Ryan Tannehill, just eventually getting traded, even though Josh Rosen, I don't think he's going to have any stint with a team that's going to be that long. It's one of those things. He's never going to be a franchise guy. He's not going to be like a Drew Brees who gets traded and then has a 20-year career. He's just going to be a perennial backup and a plug guy, a journeyman, kind of like a Brian Hoyer. And he's going to learn from different places, and he's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick, which is kind of interesting because the Dolphins did end up picking up Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's what he's going to end up having to be. He's going to end up having to get used to moving a lot, get used to adversity, get used to everything like that. And a team that wants to either transition or wants to maybe win a couple games, they pick him up as a last role. And I think that's honestly what he's going to end up. I think that's the consensus about Josh Rosen. And it's unfortunate. I mean, he's a good talent. He's a great athlete. Obviously, a state champion in tennis, I believe. And so it's unfortunate what had to happen with Josh Rosen. I mean, obviously, quarterbacks like Mitch Trubisky get chance after chance after chance, and Josh Rosen, some people get unlucky, and that makes that I always say, like, when somebody gets injured a lot, it's just like, all your injuries are you're taking all your injuries and sparing the rest of us type thing. Like, there's a finite amount of injuries that can happen. You're taking up a big share of that, but the rest of us aren't going to get injured, even though that's not true. I think it's interesting. So let's move on to the next storyline. My last one which is my awards for the midseason. We're 8 weeks in, and some teams have only played 7 games, but I'm going to give my awards. So originally I had Big Ben Roethlisberger winning MVP. Before that I had Andrew Luck winning MVP, so I've really been not good. So this is, if I were to vote today, who would the MVP be? Not who is going to be it in the future, although I may mention a couple of things about what I think will happen in the future. I'm probably going to do a BnA Sports talk about best bets, about like MVPs, about divisions. I may do a segment like that on my best bets, but right now I'm just giving you who's the MVP right now. I think the MVP, really between 3 players, Wilson, Watson, and it's between a lot of players. What am I saying? You can include Dak Prescott in there because he's leading in a lot of stats. Include Kirk Cousins in it, but I don't think that they're going to be in it. I really do think it's Watson right now. If you think about it, what the definition of most valuable player is who has the most value to their team. And if you take away Deshaun Watson, this team is 2-5, which I thought they would be. I thought they'd be a 2-5 team this year. That's 3-5, whatever. I thought they'd be the team like that, but Deshaun Watson is so good. I said, I didn't think that Deshaun Watson would be able to conquer all this dysfunction. I said, too many injuries. Look at their defense, is awful. But Deshaun Watson has proven that he can do it, that he could be a force multiplier, and I'm happy for him. So I was wrong about the Texans. I think Watson's the MVP with the Wilson close second. I think that Wilson hasn't played amazingly this year, even though he only has 1 interception. Or he's last time I checked, it was 14 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. I think he had an interception against the Ravens, but they're the 3rd team in their division, or 2nd team in their division. It's going to be hard for him to win MVP being a wild card. If Watson can win their division, which I think is possible, especially with the Colts, it can be a thing. But again, I'm going to include my best bets for MVP later, because I think some interesting team like the Saints may have a Michael Thomas, or Colts. If they end up getting a first seed, they may have a different type of player, different position player that would be a good value. But anyway, so my defensive player of the year is obviously Stephon Gilmore. You have to give it to him. The best player on the best defense. He's the best corner from Buffalo. He's just, Bill Belichick has completely rejuvenated him. You can include a lot of guys on this list, like Devin McCourty, Kyle Van Noy. It's just the whole defense just win defensive player of the year. Bill Belichick, I have him also as coach of the year. I'm going to skip to that right now. I have him as coach of the year. He hasn't won it in a while. I'll probably try to put it on the screen last time he won it. I don't even know. But he has to win Coach of the Year. I mean, right when he takes over his defense, he had Brian Flores and Matt Patricia over the past couple of years, and they've been average. Their defense have been average, and once he takes over, then they're good. I mean, that has to be stand for something. I would also consider Kyle Shanahan, obviously, because they're the two top teams right now. But I think Bill Belichick, you have to give it to him. It's too good. Like, Tom Brady's won all those MVPs. Bill Belichick never really got any awards for being the coach of the year. He is a brilliant mind. He knows how to deal. He knows how to scheme up different things. He knows how to distract the quarterback. He knows how to give them different looks. And I think we've all seen how he can just confuse the defense. Have the defensive player just stick around for 2-3 seconds. The guy doesn't see him, and then he drops back in coverage, and the quarterback just throws it right to the linebacker, whoever it is at the time. So Bill Belichick is a genius. My offensive player of the year is Dalvin Cook. I was going to have him as my comeback player of the year, but I realized he's not really coming back from anything. I had him as comeback player of the year in the beginning of the year, but offensive player of the year, Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings. He's leading the league in rushing right now behind Leonard Fournette. I don't think that Watson is playing that well to win both. I mean, it doesn't really make sense how the MVP is also the offensive player of the year. I guess it kind of makes sense, but you should give it to 2 different players. I don't know. I really don't. Dalvin Cook has led this team. He's been the reason why Minnesota is successful. He's the new Todd Gurley. He's the bell cow. Now, whether he's going to end up like Todd Gurley with his knee injuries, he's had an injury past. But for now, I think he has to be offensive player of the year. Touchdowns, rushing yards, everything. He's the reason why Minnesota's winning. Kirk Cousins can throw it only 10 times a game because Dalvin Cook is able to establish that run game and that offensive line. I'm not sure. I haven't watched a lot of film on it, but is it the offensive line or is it just Dalvin Cook being that good? I don't know. And then so my rookie of the year is Kyler Murray. The team's 3-4-1. They've had 3 teams wins against mediocre teams, but I think right now Kyler Murray is it would be the rookie of the year if you had a vote on it. Obviously, I'm not saying who's for the long term, but he's 3-4-1. People expected this team like me to be 1-6, 1-7, whatever, how many wins they would have based on their schedule. I think that Kyler Murray is lifting this team. Cliff Kingsbury is coaching Kyler Murray right. He's saying, you know what, we can win multiple different ways, which is important in this league, which is how to tell good teams. You have to be able to win multiple ways, because once the team stops your one way, you have to be able to win. And people are like, oh, the only way Kyler Murray can win is if he has 400 yards passing and doesn't get sacked. Well, he's been able to win a couple games with the run game. He has been able to throw a lot. He has been able to come back and wins or ties against Detroit. So he's done it multiple ways. And that's important for this team. Kyler Murray is my Rookie of the Year. As much as I want to put Daniel Jones, I can't. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Josh Jacobs. He's been amazing for the Raiders. That was one of my picks in the beginning in the draft. I'm like, oh, the Raiders definitely need to get Josh Jacobs. It was like a perfect fit, perfect everything. He's fit really well with his team. He's a bell cow. He can establish the run. He's averaging like a little more than 4 yards a carry, I think. The Raiders, he's a really important piece for Derek Carr. Established the run game. Derek Carr has thrown a lot this year. He has a high completion percentage, and that's because Josh Jacobs can establish the run. A little bit banged up. Obviously, the injury history with the running backs is a concern, and especially since Josh Jacobs has been injured recently. It is a concern, but I think he should win right now Offensive Rookie of the Year. And the Defensive Rookie of the Year is obviously Nicky Bosa. He's been one of the main reasons why the 49ers were successful. I had questions about his health. He's healthy now. He's had four sacks. He's just been a disruptor. It's not so much about the stats and stuff. He's just a disruptor. He may not have 50 sacks at the end of the year. He may not have 3/4 fumbles, but he's just a power guy. And he was the number 1 defensive player drafted, and he's the best. I mean, Quentin Williams, you haven't really heard much about him. I've heard a lot about Dexter Lawrence. That's because I know him. Rashawn Gary, I think he's banged up. Ed Oliver, I think he's playing decent, but the number 1 guy has been Nick Bosa. You could say, and a close second would be Josh Allen and Brian Burns, who I wanted the Giants to get both of them. I was like, the Panthers drafted Brian Burns 16, and the Giants picked 17. And then Josh Allen, obviously the Giants passed on. But I wish we had them two. But it doesn't really matter. We still have O'Shane Ximines. Let me know who you guys think are gonna win the awards in the future. Again, I'll have my best bets about MVPs and different awards later. But yeah, for now, thank you guys for watching this segment. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, now welcome to my power ranking segment. Now I'm pretty sure you've heard enough about every single one of these teams. And yeah, I'm just going to throw up my power rankings. I usually go through every single team. I go through them. You hear everyone else go through them. You hear why this team is great, why this team sucks. I'm going to talk about some movement that I had on my list. I returned the 49ers back to number 1 because I think the Patriots, they can win multiple ways, but I don't think they can win in shootouts like they have in past years. I think that aspect has gone way down. I think they're going to be too reliant on their defense in the long run. But, yeah, so I have the 49ers ahead of them. I think the 49ers can win in a bunch of different ways. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not the greatest quarterback, but Kyle Shanahan can scheme guys open. So I initially had the 49ers number 1. Then I had the number 2 last week. I'm going to return them as number 1 this week. And, so number 3, I keep the Saints. Packers, I move the Chiefs up. They're going to have a growing period now. I mentioned, and I'm not sure what segment I'm going to do it in, but, I think it's the previous segment in my storylines. The Chiefs may get lucky with, resting Patrick Mahomes, kind of like what the Saints did. They may get lucky, like, okay, let's figure out how to win when we don't have Patrick Mahomes. Let's try to figure out a run game. Let's try to get these guys reps. Let's try to spread the ball around. And Patrick Mahomes is going to come back, and he's going to be healthier. I'm not sure how much his knee is going to be a problem in the long run, dislocating it. I'm not sure. The Colts, they won a couple of tight games, but they're winning games. That's all that matters. I don't really care how you win. As long as you're winning, you beat the Broncos. You're favored by 6. You won by 2. Adam Vinatieri, his leg is needed. He's going to need to be able to kick the ball. Jacoby Brissett, he's just going to need not to throw the game away. His defense is good. I'd say they're a little bit lackluster. A little bit worse than I thought they'd be in the beginning of the season. I think they should have made a move and got another corner. I mean, they're really young at that corner spot. And I think that they should have gotten like a Janoris Jenkins. But that's not who the Colts are. They have like the 3rd most cap space right now out of any team. So that's interesting. Then I have the Texans, Ravens, Vikings. I really moved the Vikings up because I'm starting to trust Kirk Cousins a little bit more. Now, in 3 weeks, we can be having a completely different discussion. But right now, his wide receivers weren't that healthy against the Redskins, and he still played pretty well. He still did well. 23-26. And this defense, now they're going to start playing hard. It's this defense that's going to have to carry them. Kirk Cousins is going to try to throw the ball away. He has Dalvin Cook. He didn't have that last year. He's never really had an amazing run game. He didn't have Adrian Peterson when he was with the Redskins. He never really had that. Now he does. There's the Vikings. Then I have the Seahawks. People are counting them out. I think they're a good team. What are you talking? They are a team that develops and gets better as the season goes on. That's called coaching. In the beginning of the season, they may come out a little bit strong, and then throughout the rest of the year, they get better and better and better until they get to the playoffs, and they make the playoffs every single year. And once they make the playoffs, anything can happen. Remember when the Saints were coming off the Super Bowl and Seattle beat them? Anything can happen. 7-8-1. Just got to get to the dance. You got to get to the dance, baby. And you have Russell Wilson. He's top 3 in my MVP voting right now. I'm going to mention, I already mentioned it. Deshaun Watson is my MVP. I was about to say, I'm trying to lead on with anticipation. No, Deshaun Watson is my MVP right now. And so I think Seattle has to be in the top 10. The next I have the Cowboys. Dak Prescott's number 1 in QBR. He's number 1 in a lot of stats. I have to move them up just a little bit from last week. I'm not sure for how much higher I moved them up, but they definitely have to move up higher. Dak Prescott's looking good. The secondary, they didn't really address it. They didn't address it, but they have a defensive front, and that's what usually is good going into the playoffs, as long as you have not a horrible secondary. I mean, the Chiefs didn't make it to the AFC Championship. You had teams with bad secondaries that didn't make it far. So they can pass by with their secondary, I think. As long as their defensive front is good. You have Michael Bennett, and it's all about coaching, in my opinion. We'll see if they can pass the Giants this week. This is a big coaching litmus test. You're off a bye against a division rival, and this is a big test. Can they cook up some plays and get off to a hot start? Can they win when they're playing from behind? That's another big question. The reason why they beat Philadelphia is because they were able to run. Can Dak Prescott come from behind? He's tried to in the past couple games, but it hasn't really quite worked out. Next, I have the Bills. Again, I moved them down a lot because I was like, I said last week, I don't think the Bills are a top 7 team. I'm sorry, I just don't trust Josh Allen. And I was right. He's turnover happy. And the wide receivers aren't really good with this team. The offensive line is great. It's nothing number 1 in the league. But, Josh Allen, when it comes to crucial moments, is he going to be able to succeed? I don't know. They're probably going to sneak into a wild card anyway because of their schedule. I have them at number 11. They're not quite 12. They're not quite a top 10 team. Then I have the Lions. They're so close to losing the soccer room. You had Darius Slay, who said, I don't like how the coach is shopping me. I want to stay here. He's saying a whole bunch of different things. Now he's saying I want to stay here forever. Bob Quinn, the general manager or owner of the Lions, he's going to need to figure shit out. Quandre Diggs, they got rid of it, but they didn't make any splashes. They didn't bring in a Le'Veon Bell. They didn't bring any guy in that's a huge acquisition. The guys that they did bring in have struggled so far in the beginning of the season. They look kind of good against the Giants, but, who doesn't? They were rushing the Giants pretty well. Trey Flowers, Damon Harrison is good at stopping the run. If they can get some momentum about the rest of the year and stay healthy, that'd be great, but I think they already used their bye week, so down the stretch it's going to be hard for them. I moved up the Rams up a couple spots because I just trust their coaching. Sean McVay, I think, with these running backs is going to figure out something. Darrell Henderson, you have Todd Gurley. They have one more guy. I keep on forgetting his name. But they're going to figure out something with this run game, and it's just what it is. You have Jared Goff. Your defense now has another cornerback that you just brought in. Who did they bring in? Oh, yeah, Jalen Ramsey, sorry. It gives another sense of life to this team, like, hey, we're not going to quit this year. They don't have any first-round picks, so it's championship or bust. Every single year, championship or bust. They have a good defensive coach, offensive line getting a little healthier. If you get some momentum on that offensive line, it'd be good, but I still don't think that they're a top team. But still, I think they're a Super Bowl contender, obviously, because they made it last year. Didn't really lose that many players, so obviously they'd be a Super Bowl contender this year. Then I dropped the Bears a lot of spots. I mentioned last week, the Bears are trying to do a rapid growth with Mitch Trubisky. They're seeing they're putting it all on his shoulders. Can he do it? They're letting him throw so many times a game. They realize that this offensive line is not great. They scheme block wrong. Mitch Trubisky, his form is awful. if I can notice it, something's off. And I'm not a football aficionado. He's just not learning from his mistakes. Matt Nagy is putting him into the fire. He's like, just get better. Matt Nagy is starting to lose this locker room too. He's trying to grasp on. You see, every single day he's just like, oh, I need to hold on to this team. I need this team to trust me. And that call, he's trying to come from a position of strength. And you can tell he's kind of losing this locker room. Chuck Pagano, is this a good defense? I don't know. You let up 36 points to the Saints. Are you getting rid of them? Are you losing them? Akeem Hicks is injured. I get it, but this Bears defense I thought was really good. I mean, they did let up like 30 points to the Dolphins and 37 to the Patriots last year, but 36 to the Saints and Teddy Bridgewater without Alvin Kamara, I think. Come on. And then I have the Eagles. They can get some momentum here. They're one of those teams that's just like they're never out. They keep on fighting every single week. They're the drama queen of the league. They're like, oh, everything. They've really turned into that, and I really hate it. Like all of a sudden they win a Super Bowl and they want to lecture us about how to win, kind of like what Colin Cowherd says. But you just can't not like them because they have just talent on this team. They do. It's just every position they have still a little bit of talent. And it's just about whether they want to work together. They're not great at anything, but you look at it, they're not bad at anything either, really, besides secondary. I mean, and then you still have playmakers there. The defensive front's pretty good. You're getting some players back there. Offensive line's good. If the wide receivers decide they want to catch it and Carson Wentz starts to lead this team, you never know what's going to happen. Especially in this division where the repeat champions never happened, blah, blah, blah. And that rounds out my top 16 teams. I mentioned my top 15 or 16 teams. And that's it. And I'm going to quickly mention my bottom 16, my bottom tier teams. The Raiders and the Browns just miss out. The Browns are about to gain a bunch of momentum with their schedule. You look at it, they play Cincinnati twice. They play the Steelers twice. They play the Dolphins. They play the Cardinals. It's gonna lighten up, and they're gonna win some games here. They definitely are gonna win some games, and it's just a matter of fact. It's just you look at their schedule. It's just like they're gonna end up like 8-8. They're gonna lose a stinker, but they're also gonna win a pretty good game too. So the Browns are gonna end up 8-8. The Raiders, John Gruden has done better than we thought. They didn't move down a lot. They stayed about the same. It's just that they need to figure out how to finish. There usually are teams every single year that just can't finish games. And they end up 8-8, but you really okay, if they played 2 more games, if they would have just closed it out, they'd be a playoff team. And they'd be in the playoffs and be fighting to win some games and potentially, challenge like a Patriots. But obviously, they're not as good as the Patriots. Derek Carr has played better, and that's because they have some wide receivers. He's had more time. He's an accurate quarterback. He's going to throw really short balls, and he's just going to move the chains. And, there's something to be said about that. And I saw the Panthers at number 19. I told you guys. They're frauds. Kyle Allen, you think Kyle Allen, a rookie quarterback, is going to do anything? Number 19. This team has always been overrated in my books. I hate it. This is a completely biased thing, and I don't even care. They have a good rookie, Brian Burns, who they stole from the Giants. But the secondary, I don't trust it. I don't. The offensive line is decent, but who are their weapons? DJ Moore, Greg Olsen, who's really old. I mean, people are like, oh, there's a bunch of talent on this team, but I don't really notice it. I don't. I'm pretty confused why people think this team is good. And so next, what other team do I want to mention? The Titans are the most confusing team in the league. I don't know where to put them. I put them at number 22. I stay them the same. There's consistent teams and there's inconsistent teams. There's consistently bad teams like the Miami Dolphins, kind of. And then there's inconsistently good and bad like the Titans. The Chargers have been consistently mediocre. There's a consistency ranking. And the Ravens are one of the most inconsistent teams. The Titans are one of the most inconsistent teams. But then you have consistent teams like the Falcons are just consistently bad. Same thing with the Jets. So that one good game. They're just awful. Horrible management. They gave away Leonard Williams to the Giants. I made a whole video talking about that trade. Eventually, you need to start drafting good players. Like them and the Falcons. You need to draft good players. So that's why you had Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, Brady Jarrett. You need to sign guys to extensions, not sign free agents to deals. And trade for guys, because that's a net loss right away. The free agents are the final piece of the puzzle, and I think people are starting to catch up on that. You need to draft and develop talent. Now the Giants are going to be like the 49ers. They're going to have a bunch of talent from years and years. Dalvin Tomlinson, Dexter Lawrence. Now you bring in a guy, Leonard Williams, who hasn't been great, but on that offensive line. I have them at 25. They just need to solve out their coaching woes. Sometimes I'm like, Pat Shurmur, you're a genius. I like the way you used, Daniel Jones on that play action, RPO. And then I'm like, why aren't you doing that more? I know you want to create a little balance. You can't run RPO every single play, but come on, include that more. Daniel Jones is successful. Expand the playbook. Open them to everything. I know you want to stay a little bit, conservative, but come on, let's open it to everything. The Cardinals, they just don't have a lot of talent on this roster. Obviously, you have David Johnson and Terrell Suggs and different guys like that, and Patrick Peterson, but they're going to need to start drafting guys, and they had a couple of successful seasons, so they've been drafting at the low ends of the draft for a while. They're going to need to start drafting your Kyler Murrays, your Christian Kirks, your, who'd they get? Not N'Keal Harry. They got a really good guy from Arizona State, I forget. But some really good wide receivers. You're going to get some depth in the trenches. And I think that they didn't really do that well in the draft with drafting offensive and defensive linemen. But you need to start doing that. I know you want to create like a fast offense, but it really is built in the trenches. You need to protect Kyler Murray. And they have some big challenges coming up against some really good defense, especially tonight against the San Francisco 49ers. But that's where I'm going to end it. I'm not going to talk about the Redskins, Bengals, or Dolphins. I will talk about the Bengals. I feel bad for Andy Dalton. He's not a horrible quarterback. It's just that he was kind of blindsided, and he didn't even get to test the market. And that just shows, like, what's the word I'm looking for? The dysfunction. That's the word everyone uses. The dysfunction of the Bengals. I feel bad for Dalton. They never made a big splash. I don't know why A.J. Green wants to still play there. It's a disgrace. It really is. You kept a coach that was mediocre for so long and didn't want to go the extra mile. You didn't want to make a big splash. You didn't do anything. You just held pat. You didn't make a big trade. And Ohio is one of the most famed places to play football. It's Ohio. That's the birthplace of football. I don't get why they never made a big move. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this segment. This is actually my last segment I'm recording, but we're going to move on to the Best Bets segment, and hope you guys do enjoy. Yeah, I'm like, how do I end that? Bye. See ya. Adios. Sayonara. Okay. All right, and welcome to my Best Bets segment, and this is where I take the top 5 bets. I'm going to take the point spreads. I don't really like over-unders because, you bet if you bet the over, you're a winner. You bet the under. I never really understood that. Over-unders are kind of a crapshoot. I do like betting them in my parlays, but let's just do team versus team. It's kind of like, oh, which team do you think better? Well, I think they're both good, and they're going to score a lot of points. What does that mean? Anyway, so let's recap my last week. We went 3-2 last week in my best bets. We started off with saying that the Minnesota Vikings would win by less than 16.5 points, or, the Redskins would lose by less than 16.5 points, however you want to say it. That was a win. I think that we did good. I looked at Kirk Cousins in primetime games. I'm like, he's not good. I thought the Redskins... they had Adrian Peterson, and they can control some of the time of clock, giving Minnesota not as much time to throw. Then I said the Giants would lose by less than 7. They covered the spread, backdoor cover. The Lions didn't play that good. The Giants didn't play that good either. I mean, Daniel Jones played well, but the offensive line wasn't good. But it was a tight game. And I was right about that one. The Browns barely did not cover the spread. They lost by 14. I took them at 13.5. If it wasn't for that first quarter, I would have been right. I'm still salty about that. I would like to count this as right, but there's always bad beats, and that's not really a bad beat, but it's something. It should have went the other way. And I think everyone knowing, if you said how the game would go in the final 3 quarters, everyone would have bet the Browns. Anyway, so then the Colts definitely won by less than I expected. They ended up kicking a 51-yard field goal. If they would have missed it, they would have lost against the against the Broncos, sorry. The Broncos are starting to get really good at pass rush, pass defense. Jacoby Brissett struggled a little bit, but, the Colts ended up pulling it out. And then, was I 4-1? No, never mind. I was 3-2, and I said the Dolphins will cover the 14-point spread. They were winning by 14 points, and they decided to tank. I had a feeling that this game would be closer than I expected. Steelers are coming off a bye, but the Dolphins, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I had a feeling that he would put up points in the beginning of the game and throw it away later. And that's exactly pretty much what happened. But that's a quick recap of last week. I'm not going to go too far in depth. But let's go to my picks this week because I'm pretty confident in them. Probably a little bit less confident than I was last week, but let's just go. First, Jaguars plus 1.5 against the Houston Texans. They play each other really tight. If I could have bet, I would bet the under in this game, but I'm not doing over-unders like I said. The Jaguars are coming off a game against the Jets where they completely annihilated them. The Jaguars do good against teams that don't have a really good pass rush. The Texans just lost J.J. Watt. They don't have Jadeveon Clowney anymore. They have Marcellus, whatever his name is. Their secondary is weak. The Texans have one of the worst defenses in the league. I think the Jaguars score a lot of points. They play in London. These games are crapshoots. Houston Texans have played in 2 tight games, back and forth, 2 weeks in a row. Both teams have a bye after this week, but I think 1.5 points is enough. I think the Jaguars win this game. If I had to pick a score, 27-24, Jaguars win. Gardner Minshew is looking at Nick Foles behind his back. And he's like, okay, I need to keep on winning here. The defense is playing well. Josh Allen is pretty good. This defense only let up 15 points against the New York Jets. You could say that, they were struggling. They were off a short week against the Patriots. But usually teams that have poor performances in primetime rebound. The Jets, that was a rebound game. They didn't do it. Jaguars will win this game. Next, I have the Titans plus 4. Who are they playing? I just have Titans plus 4. I wonder who they're playing. Am I stupid? Oh, they're playing the Carolina Panthers. Okay, the Carolina Panthers. They've come off of 2 weeks. Well, they came off a week where they just completely got annihilated by the 49ers. It wasn't prime time, so that shouldn't factor into anything. Now they have to travel all the way back to the other coast and play in Carolina against a well-rested team in the Titans. The Titans have played in that stadium for a while. They played around that area. They haven't really had to travel that far. Ryan Tannehill is giving this team another a boost of confidence. The defensive line is pretty strong. You have Cameron Wake. You have a bunch of talent on that defensive line. Your secondary is good. The Titans are probably a top 10 defense in my opinion. And Carolina Panthers have struggled against great defenses throughout the entire year. Kyle Allen, Christian McCaffrey. He's cooled down a little bit over the past weeks. I think that's because teams have figured him out. I think the Titans can figure him out. Mike Vrabel is a good coach. I think he can scheme up something. I think this is going to be a pretty low-scoring game, and that would favor, a field goal margin. I don't believe in the Carolina Panthers long-term. Cam Newton is maybe coming back. It's going to be like an thing. I think backs against the wall. Mike Vrabel and Ron Rivera are pretty even coaches, but I think on a neutral site, the Tennessee Titans would be favored, so I like this value. I like Tennessee, even though they're the most inconsistent team in the league. They're like 1 week they're great, next week they suck, and they were last week. They were so I'd say they have a great week this week. I see them winning or losing by less than 4 points. I'm actually going to take them to win. I see the Titans 23-20. They win at Carolina. Next, we have the Jets. I like it. I love it. 3.5 points they're getting against Miami. Miami's off a short week against Pittsburgh. Adam Gase is playing Miami again. He's familiar with this. He's familiar with playing in Miami. He'll have the guys prepared. There's a little bit of controversy and dysfunction on this team with Jamal Adams, whether they're going to trade Le'Veon Bell, whether they're going to trade. I think this team rallies together and they put together a good win. I think that the Jets are just the way better team. Ryan Fitzpatrick used to play for the Jets, so they're familiar with him on defense. And Greg Williams is a great defensive mind. I just don't see how the Jets don't win by more than 3.5 points. It's a division rival, but Miami's had to travel from Pittsburgh to Miami. The Jets are staying in Florida. They just were playing in Jacksonville. They're used to the heat by now. It's going to be pretty hot for that game, around 100 degrees. Miami is going to have a slight advantage. The Jets obviously don't have Leonard Williams anymore, but I still think this offensive line is really bad. They're going to be able to generate somewhat of a pass rush. They win by more than 3.5 points. I'm taking the Jets to win 24-17. Next, I have the Colts in a pick'em versus Steelers. I saw this line. I was really confused. I feel like it's trying to trap me, but I got to take the Colts. Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously on a short week. They played Miami as well. The Colts need to win this game in order to keep pace in this really tight division. I think they do. Jacoby Brissett is a pretty good quarterback. The offensive line is good. That should be able to neutralize Pittsburgh's great pass rush. Pittsburgh also has decent corners. It's going to be a defensive battle. But when it comes to the end, I think the Colts are going to win. I really do. It's in Pittsburgh, which means Colts will be favored by 3 points. I think the Colts are a much better team. They're well coached. The Steelers are gaining a little bit of momentum, but they're 3-4 right now. Do I think they're going to be a 4-4 team after 8 weeks with Mason Rudolph as quarterback? No, I don't. The offensive line is playing pretty well for the Steelers, but the Colts have a better one. At every single position, I think the Colts win pretty much besides maybe wide receiver. The Colts are better at every position besides wide receiver, and you're telling me that the Steelers are going to win? They're not the better team overall. The teams that they've beaten are really bad. They've beaten up on the Jets. They've beaten up, I forget what other team, but I remember just like bad teams. I think they beat up on the Bengals too. Those are bad teams. They're 2 out of the worst 3 teams. So I have the Colts winning this game. And finally, Browns minus 3.5 versus the Denver Broncos. They're going to need a win. They're 2-5. Their backs are against the wall right now. They see the easy part of their schedule coming up. They play in Denver. I just think the Cleveland Browns are going to just explode this game. Baker Mayfield, Odell, whenever their backs are against the wall, they usually come up with a good performance. The Broncos are really good at home. Vic Fangio is a really good defensive coordinator. The Browns don't really have good coaches. But it's just one of those games where you got to take the Browns to just annihilate them. Kind of like what they did with the Ravens. They're going to win the turnover battle. They're going to play well on offensive line. They're going to be focused. Joe Flacco is not playing for the Denver Broncos. I repeat, Joe Flacco is not playing for the Denver Broncos. A new quarterback will be playing with not a lot of experience. You can say it's the year of the new quarterback, but this Browns defense is going to eat up whoever is playing. Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, Sheldon Richardson, Olivier Vernon. They're going to make a field day. They're going to confuse the hell out of the quarterback. Baker Mayfield is going to make some great plays. He's going to scramble. He's going to throw to Odell. Odell's going to have an 80-yard touchdown in this game. Nick Chubb. I always get Nick Chubb and Bradley Chubb mixed up. I said Bradley Chubb in one of my videos and I had to cut it out. I'm like, I'll just say Chubb. I just cut out the Bradley part. I just put Chubb. But anyway, so Nick Chubb, he rushed really well against the Patriots. The Broncos are average at run defense. I think that the Browns win this game, and they win it with a score of, let's just say 30-17. 27. Yeah, this dude's 27-13. Browns win. The Broncos really struggled to score. The Browns get some turnovers against a rookie quarterback, and the Pittsburgh and Colts game, I can see it being pretty low scoring. 20-17. Indianapolis wins that one. And those are my best bets. Let me know what you guys think. And this is actually where we wrap up my the whole video. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, let me know what you guys think. Want to see more? Let me know what your guys' best bets are this week. And I'll see you in my next